Holistic connection. Let's heal. Holistic connection. Let's learn. Holistic connection. Let's grow. Holistic connection. Let's be real.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Holistic Connections, Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. I am your host, PamelaTopjian, and our guest today is Owen. I want to welcome you to the show, Owen, and ask you to please introduce yourself and share what you do in the holistic healing world.
Yes, thank you so much. I love your show, by the way.
Oh,
I've watched a
thanks,
few episodes and I would honestly be friends with all of those people.
everybody. I know, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
So, I'm a peak states therapy practitioner. So, that's a practitioner of the modality that is actually a spin off of this whole other body of research, which is being actively worked on by the Institute for the Study of Peak States, which I'm sort of a member of. And they have this whole goal of basically coming up with a process that will make a person completely immune to all trauma forever.
Wow.
And that's kind of their like thing. They've been working on it for 30 years. And so what I do is basically like, in like the 1950s or 60s, they had the space race and they're like trying to get to the moon.
Yes.
But then all the stuff they developed, all the technology they developed to do that has all these other applications in like everyday things.
Yeah.
Like microwaves or,
Mhm.
it's all these different things. So the peak states therapy modality is a spin-off of the stuff that they discovered in that giant quest to figure out this sort of
Yeah.
holy grail of healing. And because that gets rid of all the traumas. So what I can do is get rid of traumas, conditioning, emotional wounds one at a time. And,
Okay.
and it's great. And so ultimately what I do is I'm here to empower people because I feel like that's one of the most missing and needed things for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the society that we live in for most of us feels very disempowering. And then if you include generational trauma, if you look back in literally like one generation ago, it was not
Yeah.
that good. And one generation before that, it was like really kind of brutal. And then it just gets worse and worse the further back you go.
Yeah.
So it's like we've all inherited all that stuff. And then we have whatever childhood we have.
Hmm.
And now we're expected to just exist in the world and thrive somehow.
Yeah.
And many people don't feel exactly like they're really set up for success in that way. A lot of people
Yeah.
have just really made do and like done amazing work in spite of everything. And it's amazing. Like it's one of the kind of miracles of humanity is that we are able to, in spite of all of that stuff, we're able to have good lives and make
Yeah.
meaningful change and offer something to the world.
Yeah.
And so I just try to help people do more of that.
It's amazing to me you bring up about our parents and the generation before and the generation before, and then all of us trying to exist in the world with an ever-changing world to where our parents, when I'm older, but like even my kids, the generation before, your parents, whoever they are, can't really help you navigate this world because it's changing so fast. And they just can't understand. I mean, like I said, even my kids, I can't really fully understand the world that they are coming up in, you know? And my mother would have no idea even of like what Zoom is. She cannot comprehend a video call or something like that. So it's just amazing to me that we can have all this stuff from passed down from generations and those people can't help their own children navigate through it. So that's great what you're doing. So how did you first become interested in starting all of this?
Yeah, right. So my story is interesting in that it's not a traditional like getting into being a helping profession type of thing.
Mhm.
I have always been like a tech, engineering, left brain kind of oriented person. And I started off as like doing video editing and then IT and then manufacturing. My last career up until switching to this was building industrial 3D printers. And it was all very interesting. Like I have a very
Completely different.
yeah, I have a very technical mind, but it was never super meaningful. It was always just, like the money was good and
Mhm.
I could do it. And then eventually I just burned out really bad.
Yeah.
And then in parallel with all of that, I was trying all these different healing modalities and coaching programs and workshops and therapies ever since my mom died when I was just getting out of college.
Mm.
I had a pretty nice, stable, good childhood up until then. And then like right as I'm like getting out into the world, my mom dies.
Yeah.
And then the rest of my time, I'm like doing my career and I'm also trying to figure out like how do I stop being so anxious? How do I feel normal
Mhm.
as I'm trying to make a life for myself? And so I was spending basically all of my spare money on that kind of thing. And so as I did all of that, I did that for 13 years.
Mhm.
And I kept coming back to what was apparently conventional wisdom that's had the message the pain never really goes away, the wounds never really heal. All you can really do is just accept it and carry it gracefully and get all these different support systems to keep you from collapsing back into,
Yeah.
whatever depression or sadness or what have you.
It's just
And that's the
basically work through it.
yeah, right. It's kind of like in my mind, it was kind of like if you have a leaky tire on your car and every morning you pump it up, and the wisdom is like, yeah, you just got to get really good at pumping that tire. And we have these programs that'll like make you really strong so you can pump really fast. And, and that was just never satisfying for me. I
Right.
knew like in my heart, like this can't be all that there is. There must be some way of actually healing from things permanently. Like in
Mhm.
medicine, like if you break your leg,
Mhm.
your doctor doesn't say, "Oh yeah, it'll always be broken."
Just
You'll just
learn how
have
to
to
walk with it
right.
that
No, no. Your
way.
doctor's like, "Oh, your leg's broken. Let's put you in a cast
Mhm.
and do XYZ." And then, if all goes well, then your leg is now mended. You take good care of yourself, and then you just walk normally. You
Yeah.
just, unless it's some sort of like really complicated thing. But like for an average fracture or whatever,
Mm.
it mends, and now you can just walk normally as if it had never been broken.
Mhm.
You don't have to remember how to walk. You don't have to do some sort of mental technique to be like, I am healed. I am not broken. I am a
Right.
healed person. You just don't even think about it. And
Right.
so that's basically what peak states therapy can do. And that's what any of the what are called power therapies, EMDR is the main one,
Mhm.
but there's several others. They actually fully heal and eliminate trauma permanently.
Wow.
And I tried EMDR and I liked it, but I found that peak states therapy is more flexible and more comprehensive.
Mhm.
And the model of consciousness that is used is amazing. And that's what really got me is the model of
Yeah, okay.
consciousness, which I could explain.
Yeah.
But it really appeals to my engineering mind.
Yeah.
It's like you
Nice.
have a whole, it's a very like comprehensive, broad model that actually explains a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And while there's a lot to it, it's not incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And it also and what's really cool is that the model actually kind of explains a lot of other things that people experience in healing and in just consciousness and the experience of life in general. It doesn't say, "Oh, that's not real." It says
Yeah.
that is real, but it's not what you necessarily thought it was.
Mhm.
And I really like that.
Yeah. So what's the biggest sort of misconceptions or misunderstandings that you get around this when people first contact you or they're looking through your website and they reach out to you unsure of what this is about? Although I do want to mention that you do have a demonstration video on your website, which is great. I love that. But what do you say to people who have misunderstandings and misconceptions and what are those usually about?
One misconception people have is the conventional wisdom that things never heal.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. That's big.
occasionally that actually prevents people from like they sort of bounce off my work and they're like, no, no, like don't tell me that I'm healed.
Mhm.
That's kind of strange. Um, but mostly when people come to me, they just don't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then so we do a little healing and they're like, oh, wow, I feel like really calm and like peaceful. I'm like, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I say, like, cool. Like, was that kind of what you expected? And they're like, nope, I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this.
Right, right. Yeah. So as to what you were saying earlier, I don't remember who the quote is by, but it's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. So the people who think I can't heal, this is who I am. I am this quote unquote broken person, or I am this, person who has all this trauma. I am a traumatized person. This is how I walk around in the world and this is my identity. So you can't ever heal fully is the mindset, and that's what they believe about healing and any type of therapy or healing modality. So, yeah, those people are harder nuts to crack, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and luckily
But
though, all of those things that you just mentioned, those are all beliefs. And
right.
they're not the kind of belief that like you choose. They're the kind of belief that just happens because of trauma.
Mhm.
So basic anatomy of a trauma. So there's biographical trauma, which happens to you in your lifetime.
Mhm.
Generational trauma happens to your ancestor and gets passed down.
Yeah.
And there's also associational trauma, which is like Pavlov's dog, except for bad things. And it
Mhm.
basically makes you attracted to bad things and avoidant of good things.
Yeah.
That's sort of basically what it does. Um, a biographical trauma and generational trauma actually will often have beliefs attached to them.
Mhm.
So if you're a little kid and you go out into the street and someone on their bike bumps into you and knocks you over, that might be really painful. And then you might develop a belief that it's not safe to go in the street, or it's not safe to go outside, or the world is just not safe
Yeah.
in general. It can be anything. And that belief, you don't really have a choice in that belief. That's kind of anchored to that traumatic moment.
Mhm.
And so when you have someone who believes that they can never heal, or the ideas about what is true when it comes to healing, that's all just trauma. And if you can identify that and the person is willing to examine it, you can actually heal whatever trauma caused that belief, and then they no longer feel this way. And then all
Mhm.
of a sudden, healing is so much easier for them because they're not fighting it because of this belief.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can really imagine that whatever else has happened in their life, whatever other traumas or traumatic experiences they've had, once you can help them to understand that they can get rid of that from that example of being hit by a bicycle in the street as a kid, then once they know it's possible, then it's like, "Oh, so these other things can be healed too then. Oh, I'm not damaged or broken forever, or I don't have to live with this trauma for the rest of my life, because if it's possible for this, it's possible for that too." So, if you're working with somebody and say I had this we'll use that experience. I had this experience as a child. I was hit on the street by a bicycle, and now I'm just afraid of riding my bike. I'm afraid of even going outside. I have this because the world is, out to get me or whatever the belief is. So once you're working with them for that, do they then things that they didn't even come to you for or weren't even asking for help with, you're like, oh, these things are also I'm also feeling better about these things. I'm also feeling like I'm healing from these other issues that I wasn't even considering coming to you for. Does that happen sometimes, or does that even make sense?
Yeah, it does. Sometimes it happens. It depends on how interconnected their traumas are,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
sometimes things are just very sort of like singular.
Mhm.
And then other times it's sort of like a web where something depends on something else, and it kind
Right.
of all is this reinforcing thing. And those are sort of the harder ones because sometimes people will actually unconsciously resist healing because
Mhm.
of some other thing. And you have to kind of figure out like what is that thing and then heal that. And then they can come back to the first thing. But as
Yeah.
far as resolving one thing and then everything else just kind of falls into place, sometimes that happens. If you're
Mhm.
lucky, you get like a really key, sort of keystone kind of
Yeah.
thing that a lot of other stuff was depending on. And those are always really nice when you find them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like offshoots of, there can be like the core issue. You think of like a dandelion root, this is the core issue. And here's all these little offshoots, these little roots that come off of that sort of core issue. So you take care of that, then you're pulling up these others too. But if they're coming to you for one of these little offshoots and they don't realize there's a deeper issue where this came from, then you can kind of unearth that, so to speak. So,
Yes.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine that being really helpful for people and just a big surprise to them. So, I wanna mention your website is optimizeconsciousness.com. Is there a dash in there?
There is a dash.
A
Yes.
dash, optimize-consciousness.com. And you have a YouTube channel by the same name. And you give so much information on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram that anybody's interested in learning more. You've got so much information out there. So please check all that out. And we'll have those links below. And like I said, you've got a demo video on your website and testimonials. So that's really awesome. And everywhere that you are, you have that same name, which I love when people do that. That's so smart.
Right.
Optimize Consciousness. And you also have a link tree. So anyone who knows how Linktree works, all the information's there too, and we'll put that below as well. Um, so you work with people. Obviously, this has to be a one-on-one thing. You don't do groups and that. So you're working virtually, in person, both. How are you working with people?
Almost entirely virtually.
Okay.
Although I do have one little group event that I'm starting to
Oh,
do. There's like certain things you can do as a group,
okay.
and so I'm venturing into that space. But 99% of my work is just one-on-one.
And that information, I'm sure you'll share that because you're real good at sharing about everything. So that'll be all over your social media and on your website, right? So, where is the best place for people to reach you out of all those places that you have? Where's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Um, the easiest place would just be email. There's
Okay.
a form on my website where you can email me.
Okay.
But any of my socials, you can also reach out.
Okay. Okay. Good. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that you share or make sure that people know before we end this today?
Yeah, when you work with a lot of different kinds of people, you kind of find the people that you work the best with.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that those people are generally women who are very kind of like visually, spiritually, emotionally developed.
Yeah.
Um, they generally have like the most fun and the most kind of like they're able to go the furthest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that I didn't mention is that in addition to healing traumas, right, it's kind of like something is sort of broken and you're making it not broken anymore. There's also, instead of going from like negative to neutral, there's a way of
Mhm.
actually going from neutral to positive, which is uh, gaining new peak states. So that's where the peak
Mm,
states therapy comes from,
I
is
see.
this concept of a peak state of consciousness, which if you ever had a peak experience, there's a whole bunch of different ways of having them. Sometimes you
Sure.
are on the mountaintop, sometimes you're giving birth, sometimes you get sick, sometimes, you take a substance and you're kind of elevated in some way.
Mhm.
And you're just like, wow, this is so amazing. And what's interesting is it actually feels normal in a certain way. And that's because it is normal. We're all supposed to have a whole bunch of states, and most people don't have very many because they all get kind of lost either before you're born or in your childhood, which is why children are so like bright and shiny and happy. And then
Yeah.
once they become teenagers, then they're like,
Ah,
then once they're adults, they're like, "Ugh,"
even
so,
worse. Yeah.
on average, like
Mhm.
some people just don't have very much trauma and they get to keep all their states. And those people are often very successful and just life is just pretty easy for them. Um, but my favorite thing to do is to help people recover lost states of consciousness. And I noticed that a lot of people, and particularly it was this category of woman that I was telling you about, because these women are often very empathetic and
Mhm.
very caring people and very emotionally attuned.
Yeah.
And something for a lot of those, something happened around COVID, like
Mm.
2020, 2021, 2022, where they lost a state. Like they were
Yeah.
in oftentimes they were in a really difficult relationship or they,
Mhm.
went through some really difficult time. And the inner light and the vibrancy that they were used to actually sort of goes away.
Yeah.
And then they're depressed or confused, like, I don't feel like I used to feel. And it can actually help you get that back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my favorite thing to do. It's just like warms my heart. It makes me so happy. That's the last thing I wanted to say.
Yeah.
If
Nice.
anybody's
Nice.
experienced that, there's actually, you don't have to stay stuck. You can actually go back to how it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's remove that cloud, right? And I love that you explain that, because that does explain optimizing your consciousness. So optimize consciousness, and then the peak states, therapy. Now that makes so much sense, the names of that. So I'm glad that you explained that a little bit more. I didn't even think to ask about those names, but now I really get it, and I think that hopefully the audience will as well. So thank you so much for being my guest, and this has been so amazing, and I love learning new things. And everybody, let's learn and heal and grow together. Share this video out. It's just so amazing, and go follow Owen on all the places. Look at the links in the description and go follow. Thanks again, Owen.
Thank you so much, Pamela. It's
You
wonderful
so
to
much.
meet you and to be on this show.
Absolutely. Thank you.